Welcome to the Who Told You to Say That podcast. I'm Chrissy Vanta.
I'm Anna Tarullo.
And welcome back, guys.
We're so excited to record our second episode.
I know. We made it this far.
We did.
We made it this far. We've got some big news, some big things happening. As you can see, we are still in separate rooms. We were having some technical difficulties, but we are working on that. We're just going to blame Andrew Bosch because he had to leave.
Yeah, we're quarantined, and that's fine. We've been through it.
Yeah. Normally, I like to blame Matt McGavick for things, but he legitimately didn't have anything to do with this one.
We can still blame him. Like, there's no reason to not.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Matty Ice.
Who will be on the podcast with us in the near future, along with many other fabulous guests. But we do have some other things going on in the podcast world. Anna, do you want to let everybody know what happened this week?
I do. I'm so excited, and it brings up a great point that I even wrote a little note on my phone. I'm like, we got to talk about this on the pod. So last night, I was blessed enough by the friendship gods. Nick Valvano invited me to his hockey game, and it was so fun. It was me. It was a big cheering section. It was a big crowd. The only ones on the bleachers were me, Nick's girlfriend, Jeanette, who we love. Shout out Jeanette. And then Nick's mom and dad were there, and then Nick's brother was the ref. And I think I had more fun heckling Jamie as a ref, but
Jamie is hilarious.
Jamie is awesome. He told me that I smelled like Incredible Dave's. So that is very similar to Dave and Buster's.
I was going to say, which would you prefer?
Yeah, you know what? Same. They're about at the same level. Like,
okay.
About the same level as like an Applebee's. You can tell me I smell like an Applebee's or a Chili's, and it's going to mean the same to me, to my heart, which is a lot. So, anywho. And so I was sitting there talking. I was talking to my girl, Jarlene, and then I was talking to Bob. And Bob or Jeanette, I think they both kind of asked around the same time. They were like, I think Jeanette asked first. She was like, okay, tell me about the name of the podcast. Who told you to say that? And I was like, as with anything, and I texted Matt McGavick this week. I said, Chrissy is our fearless leader, and I am just along for the ride. I'm the personality hire.
You're here for the vibes.
I'm here for the vibes. I'll bring the vibes. But and then I'm going to let you take it from here. But I just, you gave me kind of like a list of names that, were a good idea to call the podcast. And you wanted to go with something ironic, something funny. And this was one of the first names you gave me. And I was like, I love that. So take it away, baby.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, Anna is talking about Nick Valvano and Bob, the Valvano family, who are known throughout the sports world, but we are lucky enough to have Bob and Nick here in Louisville with us. And we did kind of get ironic with the name. That was something, I sent you a list of a few, and this one stuck out. I think we kind of both liked it because we both have a little bit of like a smart aleck petty side to our personality. And often when you're a woman in a male dominated field, or you're just around men a lot, I think a lot of women have heard a guy say to them, like, you'll spew off some sports fact or talk about a game highlight or something like that, and you're looked at and it's immediately like, oh, well, who told you to say that? Like, your boyfriend? Did your boyfriend tell you to say that? And I think we kind of both liked that and where that was coming from, because we're going to talk about sports on this podcast. So I dare somebody to talk to either of us and be like, who told you to say that?
To you in real life? Has that ever happened to you?
I feel like, yeah, probably.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever happened to me, and it makes me question why. I'm like, am I not ladylike enough that people would expect me to not know? Like, you're so aggressive. You care too much.
Yeah.
You drip too hard.
I think the difference for us, I can't think of a specific instance where it happened to me, but I think for you and I, like, we've been here for so long that we have kind of built up a reputation, and like people at this point are aware that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of other females have experienced instances where they're made to feel like they don't know what they're talking about, even if they do.
Right. And I think I always maybe have some rage behind my eyes. Like with these takes, it's like, okay, she cares a little bit too much. Like something's going on. It's not like I said in a nice way, like, oh, I think this person should be the starter. It's like, no, I will die on this hill. It's like, okay, maybe she needs some other help that we're going to talk about later.
Like some psychiatric help.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
hey, that's messed up. You should be able to have a take and defend it however strongly you want and not be accused of doing it for likes or for being a pick me, as people say, or for this or for that. You're allowed to care.
Yeah, you are allowed to care, and I think you and I both care, and we know a lot of other women who truly care, who grew up around sports like we did, and I think it's important that our voices are heard and paid attention to and validated in the same way that men who don't know what they're talking about are validated.
Girl, you said it.
So,
I almost like get embarrassed sometimes if I'm talking with somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. It's like I don't want to like eviscerate them, but
yeah,
oh God, I guess I'm getting more polite in my old age,
I
in
try
my older years.
I try to be
I'm getting.
nice. I try to be
I
nice.
try. It's not always a
Try.
success.
I know
Also,
some
Becky, when are we
people.
gonna crack these bad boys?
Okay, yeah, let's do it. So we'll jump right into that. I was going to go into it next. Another big announcement for us, as you see this Alani and Prime behind us, we have locked down an Alani New and Prime sponsorship. So welcome to the team, Alani New, and
Woo!
thank you for saving me on the regular. This is one of my favorite flavors. This one is the Orange Kiss. I think Anna's got the Hawaiian shaved
I
ice.
got the Hawaiian shaved ice, and I noticed I've never tried this kind, but I noticed it earlier, and I was like, "That's bringing me back to childhood. That's bringing me
Yeah.
back to summertime."
So that one's really, really good. But yes, thank you to Alani and Prime for being a part of the team now. So you guys will see these often. You will see us shout them out often. And typically, if you see me anywhere, I have one of these in my hand regardless. And that was pre-sponsorship. It's one of my favorite products out there. I use their pre-workout. I drink their energy drinks. The Orange Kiss has been my favorite summer flavor so far. Also a big fan of the watermelon. But Witch's Brew came out this week.
Girl,
And
that's the stuff.
and if you are an OG Alani drinker, you know the Witch's Brew is top tier. Sold out in like 30 minutes online
That's the first one
yesterday.
I ever tried. That was
So
the first
good.
one I ever tried. It was so good.
I got really bold at the Notre Dame Louisville game last year when Notre Dame
Mm.
played at Louisville. And I mixed my Witch's Brew with a little bit of bourbon.
Ooh, girl. And good night. Well, not good night. It's like I'll see you in the morning because I haven't slept because of this
No,
Alani.
well, I didn't make it into the
When
game.
okay, well, because you were probably doing errands, you were probably doing things you needed to do because it kept you awake.
Sure, yeah. It was the only home game I missed last year.
Shot went down.
I went down hard. Like,
God, I'm so
y'all,
ready to
I'm
say it.
34 years old and I called my mom to come pick me up. I
And
swear
did
to
she do
God.
it?
Yeah.
If I would call my dad. I would not.
She
My
was
mom is
like,
like,
I was
me.
like, Mom. Well, one of my friends called her at first and he was like, he was trying to be so nice. His name's Devin. He was trying to be so nice. He was like, telling my mom, he was like, I think she just ate something bad and like she's getting sick. And
Oh, for sure.
I was like, give me the phone. And I was like, Mom,
Mom,
I
I'm drunk.
drank too much. I can't drive. Please come get me.
Mom, I'm off that witch's brew, girl. Come get me. Things are not going well.
Yeah. Steve
Let's
Rummage
crack
texted me.
these.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's crack these.
Steve Rummage texted me like a quarter into the game and he was like, where are you? And I was like, not there.
On my mother's couch.
Yep.
My mother's front seat.
Yep.
At a Wendy's. Okay, cheers. Woo!
Cheers.
Thank you, Alani. Thank you,
Thank
Angie Box.
you.
Send this up. All right, Hawaiian shaved ice. Here we go. One sip. Everybody knows the rules. That's a party. That's what that is.
So I love the Orange Kiss. It tastes
That's
like
good.
Sunkist, like orange soda,
Ooh.
but it's
I
not
have one here
soda.
too. I'm gonna try that one too. I'm gonna
Okay,
double.
that's good. We
I'm gonna
also
double
have
check.
the breezeberry and the cherry slush back here.
Cherry slush.
Mhm.
That tastes just like an orange crush.
It's so good. So good.
I'm gonna drink two, and y'all are gonna
So
love them with me
so
after.
cheers to Alani for that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
And
you,
we are
Alani.
so excited to work with you all.
To partner with y'all. Our
I
very first partnership,
know.
Chrissy.
I know. I'm
Look
so
at
proud of
us.
us. Actually, I'm
Look
proud of Andrew because Andrew really pulled the
Yeah.
weight on that one. Shout out to him.
We just show up ready to talk.
I
The
know.
boys do all the work.
That's
Sorry.
true though, because we sat here for like an hour and a half.
Over 2 hours.
And then you yelled at Brian to come shut the door for you.
Brian! Brian, come hand me my hairbrush. Just kidding.
All right,
Brian
well,
sucks.
let's get into it. A lot's happened this week. It's been a busy week in the sports world. Still got the Olympics going on. We're getting ready to dive straight into football season. Preseason games start this week. We've got women's basketball ramping up, men's basketball ramping up. If you are local to the Kentucky area and you are a Louisville fan, they announced Louisville Live today. We're back, baby.
October 4th, right?
We're back. October 4th at the Yum Center. We are so back. Like,
how does that feel for you when you saw that?
It felt really good. I was kind of like in a weird moment when it got announced, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But it was very exciting to see that make a comeback this year. I think it's going to make a huge difference for the vibes around the program. I think you're going to see a lot of people there. I think a lot of people are going to be very excited. And I like that they're doing it at the Yum Center this year. Checking in at home. I think it's a good venue for it. The other venues were very cool. They've done one at Churchill Downs. They've done one at 4th Street. Did one at Slugger Field. All cool places, all unique to Louisville. But I think just having it at the Yum Center is just something, it gives them a better connection with the program, I think. So I think it'll be cool.
I think it was smart, too, to do it coming off the Bahamas games because there was already some buzz around the program. There's already some excitement. So hats off to everybody who planned that and who planned the launch and the announcement of that. I think it came at a perfect time where interest is already high. Excitement is at a peak that you haven't seen in years of the upcoming season. So that was really smart to do it that way. And I think it just makes everybody more excited. And it just must feel, because I think that was like the resounding thing after the Bahamas was, all right, this is going to be different than what we've seen the past few years. I think people were hoping that, and you had a feeling that it would be different than what the last era, the last tenure there. So to just add to that excitement was smart. That was a good marketing move.
I agree. And our athletic department's full of good marketing moves. And speaking of marketing, they are not paying me to say this, nor have I, bought one myself, but I'm going to. And I don't know if you're going to get one of the UK ones, but the Good brand, Homefield, put out premium football boxes with merchandise this year.
Does UK have one?
UK has one.
What?
And the way they rolled that out was so cool because they released them in 3 phases. So they did a reveal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they go on sale tomorrow. And it's like, it's a good box. It's like 2 shirts, a hoodie, a hat, a koozie, and then you get like a little premium card that gives you discounts on products throughout the year as well. But all the items in these boxes are exclusive to the boxes. So like you have to have a box to get these t-shirts and hoodies, and they're pretty cool. Like I love Homefield. It's one of my favorite brands. So definitely check that out. UK and UofL both had their reveal on Tuesday.
So people are going to know. What is it like? Do they have like any of the vintage logos and all that stuff?
All vintage logos.
See, that is what gets me. And Round Daddy Tees, we have a lot of vintage stuff as well on that.
Yes, yeah. Don't forget about Round Daddy Tees. You can purchase your Who Told You to Say That podcast merch with our faces on it. And Brian Hall's face now.
Brian Hall is in there with the Lord, baby.
The Holy Spirit himself.
So you want to pay your respects and go to church, buy you a Brian Hall t-shirt.
That's true. Let me tell you a story. I immediately sent that shirt to Steve Rummage and told him I expect him to be wearing it next time I see him.
Jeanette, Nick Valvano's girlfriend Jeanette told me that she had already bought a shirt from our line.
Aw, that's so sweet. I love Jeanette. Thanks, Jeanette.
We love you, Jeanette.
Do you think she bought Nick one?
Nick should be buying her one though.
Oh, that's true.
Let's keep it a hundo. It don't matter. I want to see Jeanette rocking it. So
Nick should be buying her more than a t-shirt. But
call him out.
Yep. So exciting week in sports this week. I personally had planned on thriving this week. Olympic weightlifting started. I've been waiting since opening ceremonies for that to kick off and get started. And it was overlapping with the CrossFit Games, which is like my holy grail. I look forward
Like
to
your
it every year.
heaven.
Yeah, yeah. So I've done CrossFit for 6 years. I love the competitiveness, the community of it. It's fun. I have a good time. It's like type B fun though. Like,
Yeah.
like
Be fun. Let's
I
go.
leave and I'm like, okay, that was miserable. I hate you all. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
But I'll see you again.
Yeah, exactly. And I woke up this morning and I think I tweeted about thriving today. I woke up, watched the first round of, I'm sorry. CrossFit Games kicked off first. They usually always start with run swim events in the morning, first day, ready to go. Watch immediately after that was over. It ended like just in time for the women's class to do their weightlifting for the Olympics today over in Paris. So I was like, oh, perfect. Like I was tweeting about it. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like event one ended. The GOAT, Tia Claire Toomey, came in like second or third overall, like out of the men and the women.
No.
Crazy. So what they had to do is they had to run 3.5 miles and then swim 800 meters, open water swim.
I feel like that's what the Olympics is really about. That's what it used to be about.
Yeah. So second overall, she finished it in like 38 minutes. I was like, it takes me that to run a 5K. Like I'm unreal.
Sit on a couch.
Yeah. Well, she bounced back like she never left. She was off last year because she had a baby. Yeah,
she's a mom. It's not fair.
It's not fair. No. But you're talking about people who like they work out like 4 times a day because they're professionals. That's what they get paid. Yeah, exactly. That ends. I'm like, okay, perfect time. Like I can go make my breakfast. I'll sit back down, watch Olympic weightlifting. The women were going first this morning. Eat my little protein. The women were going first this morning. I was like, all right, let's do it. Higher weight class, higher weights. I'm excited. So as I'm watching Olympic weightlifting, my phone starts blowing up and I'm like, that's weird. It's like 9 a.m, like super early. Everybody's just settling to work. I get a text from one of my CrossFit coaches who was like, somebody's missing in the water. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was just watching the event. Like, I watched it end. I watched the whole thing, switched over to weightlifting, and I haven't heard anything about that. Long story short, one of the biggest, like, up and coming CrossFit athletes, his name's Lazar, died. Like he drowned and died during this event today. Very first event of the games, very first day, goes underwater. And like, I watched some of the live feedback. So there's like a CrossFit Games live feed. And then there's a podcast called the Save On Podcast, which is a very popular CrossFit podcast. They were live streaming. Everybody cut their feeds. Like, good. Cut their feeds. They're telling people to leave the scene. So I watched a recording of the live feedback, and you can actually see where he goes underwater on the recording. The craziest part about this, first of all, if you make it to the CrossFit Games, you're playing for a national championship, okay? Like
you're exceptional.
You are exceptional. Like you're best of the best. And I know a lot of people, CrossFit has a negative reputation for being dangerous, blah, 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 whatever. I don't care about that right now. Like you can take that opinion and do whatever the hell you want to do with it, because if you're doing something dumb enough in CrossFit to injure yourself, you were probably going to do it anyways. Like take that and go on somewhere. This is a group of some of the best athletes in the world. And I'm using the term athletes because that's what they are. You're talking about former gymnasts. You're talking about former swimmers, former football players. These people are athletes. A lot of them were athletes at the collegiate level. Bianca Belair, who is a WWE superstar now, was a regional CrossFit athlete and went to UT and ran track for the University of Tennessee. They are athletes.
Yeah.
Lazar, 10 years experience as one of the best water polo players in the world. This guy's a swimmer. Like he knows what he's doing in the water. This is an event he should have won. It's not an event that should have taken his life at 28. And he was
top 3? Like going into when he went under, he was like in the top 3?
I think when
No?
he came around the bend, I think they said he was in sixth.
Oh,
So, I
okay,
mean,
okay,
he
okay.
was still doing like very well for this
Hmm.
event, especially when you're talking about that number of people. They haven't made any cuts yet. There's still a lot of people there. Um, so they're about 25 meters out from the finish line, and he just goes under, and you never see him come back up.
It's so sad. Somebody had shared the video to my feed, and I was like, oh,
It's extremely
I don't
sad.
want
And you're
to see.
talking about one of the best athletes and best swimmers in the world. Like, this isn't someone who struggles to swim or doesn't know proper swimming technique. And that's what leads me to believe, and this part is all speculation. This is just my personal opinion. Something went wrong. To me, something went wrong. And I say that for two reasons. A, because he's very fit. And I know there were like 23 triathlon deaths last year, all in the swimming portion. This
Ooh.
happens because you get exhausted when you're swimming, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're running and then swimming. And there's a lot of argument that the programming was wrong. The swim should have been before the run because that's how they do it in triathlons. And that opinion's fine. What he didn't do while he was struggling on that end stretch was roll over to his back. And any trained swimmer or water polo player knows that if they're struggling, you want to roll over to your back. And they teach
You
that to,
can float.
right. And they teach that to infants when they're learning to swim as well.
Yeah.
You teach them to
I'm glad
roll
you
over
said
to
that.
the
I
back.
didn't know that. I've never
Yeah.
heard that.
So you don't see him do that in the video. And there's no recording of him anywhere where you can see him rolling over to his back.
Or even struggling.
Well, you can see him struggling.
Do you? I
You
watched it.
can.
I just saw him not
So
come up.
something else that was
He
pointed
wasn't like
out.
flailing.
No, something else that was pointed out when people were watching recordings back, because you're talking about like 1,000 spectators. You've got media members there who cover this because the games they're scheduled to be on ESPN this year. We're back on ESPN. Like it was getting a lot of big coverage. So hundreds of people had video of this happening. Something else that was noticed when everybody was watching it back is that he was switching between his swim styles. So he would freestyle swim, stop for about 30 seconds, catch his breath, breaststroke for about 30 seconds, stop, catch his breath, freestyle, which is also super uncommon. So you could tell because he was switching and stopping to catch his breath that he was struggling. So, and he had been struggling. And I think where the issue is lying with a lot of people right now is not necessarily blaming CrossFit headquarters for the programming being dangerous, but where he went under, you can see there were two lifeguards on paddle boards on each side of him who didn't really, I don't know if they weren't paying attention because there were so many other things going on around them. There was a fan, a spectator who jumped into the water who witnessed him go under that was trying to swim over to him. And I think it feels like those lifeguards that were on paddle boards heard people yelling, fan in the water, got distracted trying to figure out why
Wow.
there's a fan in the water when he goes under. And it took them a while to find him. His tracker fell off.
When he went under? It took him like an hour, right?
It took them a while. It took them a while. So they, Rebecca Foussier, who is a CrossFit athlete that I follow, she was live streaming as it was happening. And you could hear in the background where they're telling people to leave the premises. And it's like, leave the premises in an orderly fashion. And you can see the ambulance pull up, the search boat pull up behind her. Like, it shook an entire community all day today. And people talk about CrossFit being a community all the time. And you really saw that come through today. As I was on my way here, they actually pulled all of the athletes into a meeting because there was a lot of conversation of, okay, they canceled all the events today, but this usually runs Thursday through Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
They canceled everything today, and there was talk of, okay, are they going to even have this thing this week? Are they going to go on? Are they going to just cancel everything? And my opinion from the beginning was you need to let the athletes decide. They're the ones who train for this. They're the ones who are friends with him.
And are grieving.
They're the ones who are grieving. You need to have a conversation with them. You need to let them decide. If they want to continue, let them continue.
Yeah.
And what I didn't add earlier is Lazar's brother was actually competing as well today.
No. Is he Serbian? Did I get that right?
He's Serbian,
No?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's Serbian. So I can't even imagine like the heaviness of getting to experience something like that with your brother and it ending the way it did.
And knowing you're in the same water as it's happening, you had no,
Yeah.
I cannot even conceptualize that grief. That's one of the saddest things. I wasn't looking for that video. Someone had shared it across my feed and I was
Yeah.
really disappointed that they did. I didn't, it really, like, it got me. It was sad. It was bad. And it was,
It was difficult to watch.
yeah, just to see, I mean, that's somebody's last moment. So
Yeah.
that's awful.
So
It,
I was glad to hear, like, I was on my way here and I was listening to the Savon podcast because they went back on air to talk about it because they were all friends with him. They interviewed him right before the 3-2-1 go, like said he was happy, he was warm, he was, loving on them, he was always willing to talk to everybody. And then as I was coming into the studio today, saw a notification from CrossFit come across that they were holding a meeting with all the
mhm.
athletes.
Like,
And
yeah.
then as we were waiting to set up to start recording, I saw another one that they are going to finish this weekend out. But
Okay.
I think, and I need to research this more. I'm going to do it when we get finished here. I wouldn't be surprised to see several not compete.
How could you, when you're grieving like that? That's got to be tough. I mean, it's hard to make your body want to do anything when you're grieving, much less
Yeah,
when
and
you're even
and
competed at a high.
especially when you're in the moment like that. Like my head immediately went to the Damar Hamlin situation.
Okay, as someone who struggled from like medical PTSD, I cannot watch that. Even like, there's been something recently, was it NFL awards or something that he was at, and they talked about something and they panned to his face. I can see him having PTSD because I make the same facial expressions that he does. I think, and then that's conjecture, I guess, but I
Sure.
just can see him having it, like, and it's awful, and it's, I couldn't imagine something like that playing out on the main stage and being such a media talking point. But you brought up a couple of really good points with it. I think one is, I hope what comes out of this is the way that the safety precautions are put into play. And maybe the lifeguards, maybe you need to set it up how, hey, you have your eyes on these people. You have a number of swimmers that you are looking for and watching. Maybe it's not assigned that way, so it can get lost in the shuffle that you don't even notice that someone's down. Or how do you miss that? How do you miss, that's your job? Like, I don't, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to make them feel awful, but like, how do you, that's your one job. How are you not like completely hyper aware in that moment? And I think what was so disappointing in the video that I watched was he goes down and nobody does anything. Nobody goes to help.
Yeah.
You and I also talked about, perhaps it was, I don't know if it changes my mind. You talked about him switching swimming styles. So maybe this was like an exhaustion thing. He ran out of breath. Maybe it was a breathing thing. But to me, when I first saw it, it seemed almost like a cardiac event, that like he just went under and didn't resurface, because it's not like he flailed there and like stopped for a moment. But like, I know athletes aren't trained to do that. You're trained, we saw it with Quincy Hall and his 400 meter. You're trained to push it to the absolute limit. So maybe there were signs that he could have stopped, but it looked like he just, I don't know, and that just went under, didn't come back up. And I can't imagine. I also don't encourage people to share the video. Something about that unsettled me
I,
so deeply.
I've felt very strongly about that for a long time. Not just this video, because you're literally watching someone's life end
You're
in that
watching their
video.
last moments, and that's heavy,
But
especially anybody who's like come close to death. It'll it'll put you right back in that moment.
yeah, not even just that video, but injury videos.
Oh yeah.
I That's my least favorite retweet, are injury videos. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to see them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel some type of way about people sharing them. Imagine
You're the
being
family.
Yeah, the family, or even just being the athlete and going through this experience where your entire career is at risk, your dreams are at risk, and you have this traumatic injury, and you go to the hospital and you get treated, and you finally get home and you can finally relax a little bit, and you open Twitter just to see thousands of retweets of that moment over
Mm-hmm.
and over and over
Everybody's
and
seen
over
it. Everybody
again.
has an opinion. There's permanent record. You can't escape it. I cannot imagine that. Just the trauma. And there's something different. Like trauma in all forms is horrible, but when it is like your physical body, and especially as an athlete, when you're trying to get confidence back after an injury, I'm sure having a constant reminder of that and having a million opinions about it. I just
Yeah,
don't think I don't think it does any good. What does it do to see it? You can say the injury, you can
nothing.
explain it, but like I think TV has gotten a lot better about not zeroing in on it, not zooming in on it, and seeing a play by play and a slow mo. Nobody wants to see it. And that's, high praise to medical staff who deals with that on a daily basis and can be a hero in that moment and come at it unemotionally and handle it. But I don't think there's any good in that. And it was just upsetting because you had mentioned it earlier today in our group text, and I just got on Twitter earlier and just someone had just shared the video and it was like auto playing, and I was like, that's like there's been a few videos in the past like year that I've auto played and have like messed me up. Like, I hate it. But that one was especially. It's almost traumatic to just watch it, and you hate to say that because
Yeah.
you weren't the one there, but nobody. I don't think that's good to see it. But I just hope they can make some changes. And did you find out any information about how they chose to continue the games? Was it the athletes? Did they vote on that? Decide that?
I haven't yet because it was happening. The meeting was happening. They had it scheduled for 4 p.m. They're in Fort Worth, Texas. So it was 5 o'clock. It was right when we were walking in here.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't found out yet if they did like a group vote or anything like that. I am curious to find out though. I personally think that's how it should be done
Mm-hmm.
because these people were his friends. These people were his colleagues. They've known him for a long time. So I think it should have been left up to them.
I hope they name it after him. I hope they honor him in some way.
Yeah,
Just
so CrossFit's actually really well known for naming workouts after like
yeah.
certain people and things like
What's the
that.
one they do? There's like a very patriotic one, right?
There's a lot. Murph is probably the most
That's the
popular
one
one.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking of.
So during Memorial Day, we do Murph. It's a ridiculous workout.
Have you
Um,
done it? Yeah, Chrissy.
I didn't do
How
it
hard
this
was it?
year. I just
How
didn't
hard
want to
was
do
it
it.
compared to what you usually do?
It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
I want to hear more about how you got into CrossFit.
It's actually a really funny story, and it's not a long one.
Tell us.
um, my best friend had a baby, and 9 months later decided she was like ready to get back into a healthy lifestyle. She and her husband went to try a CrossFit class, and they liked it. About 3 weeks later, they were doing like this bring a friend day where you could bring someone with you. And her husband was bringing one of his really good friends who she does not like. And she called me and she was like, "Hey, will you go to this with me just so I'm not the third wheel and I have like a buffer between me and them?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, girl, I got you." So I went, and 6 years later, I'm still doing it.
Were you big into fitness before that? Like, is
Mm-mm.
that
No,
no
like
way?
I never found something that I enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that I enjoyed. I like the group aspect of it. I like the community of it. I like how challenging it is. You never get good at it. Like it's such a mix of like Olympic weightlifting and gymnastics and cardio. So like when you think you're good at one thing, don't worry. There's like six more things that you're still really horrible at. So like you never, I mean, a CrossFit Games athlete, like sure, they're great. Tia Claire Toomey's like not a human, but normal people, like, no.
It sounds like very ego destroying too. Like there's like a spiritualism to it. Like you're humbled constantly. It's not like you're
Every
coming in
single
here
day
to
of my life,
achieve.
every single day of my life, Yeah. Um, those egos are actually what cause a lot of injuries in CrossFit because people think
Get
they
out.
just they get in their heads.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the cool. I actually know one of my favorite, one of my best friends when I lived in West Virginia. She met her husband through CrossFit.
yeah,
He like
so
joined a
one
gym
of
there.
my
There's so
friends
many
did as
couples.
well. And
Yeah.
they actually got engaged at the gym.
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like if you're, and she was like a cheerleader. I think she cheered for Alabama for like a year,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
she would always like try to make me go. I'm like, dog. Like I would never get engaged or meet a husband. They'd be like, "Who is this loser here?" I couldn't even do one thing, but maybe I don't know. I just don't think that it would be my. I don't know. Maybe I should try it one day and see. But
You can go with
who knows?
me.
Yeah, I would go with you. I would go with you.
Um, speaking of proposals, do you want to get into that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
no, it is not Anna who got
Oh
proposed
my God,
to.
it's still there. Help me.
There was a proposal at the Olympics this week.
Yes, there were a few,
Yeah,
but one really set off the opinion train. And it was, what was she doing? Steeplechase? I guess it's a track.
steeplechase.
Um,
Don't even know what.
yeah, I was like, I thought horses were involved. I'm not really sure, but
Okay, I don't know. Whatever. Not the
it,
point.
not the
Not the
point.
point
It
here.
was a lady. It was a lady. I can't remember her name or what country she was representing, but she wins this event and then immediately goes to the crowd and proposes to her boyfriend.
Yes.
And I know you said you had strong opinions on it. I'm going to let you go first, and I'm going to follow up with what I think.
Sure. So for me, it's not even that she was proposing to him. It's 2024. I don't care.
Do what makes you happy.
I hate public proposals.
Mm.
I feel like that is such a private moment between you and your partner, and you should really be able to enjoy that without literal
Pressure.
millions of people watching all around the
Yeah.
world without the pressure of it.
Or like a
What if he
production.
said no?
Because then
Like,
that's going to be awkward.
it triggers my anxiety so much. Like, if somebody ever did that to me, I would absolutely freeze up. I wouldn't know what to do. And
Well,
like, I
it's
feel like in those circumstances, you don't even really get to enjoy the moment because you're so worried
no.
about all the people around you. And speaking of all the people around you, the guy in the white polo stayed in the frame way too long.
I thought that was the fiance until like the end of the video. I was like, which one is she proposing to?
Everybody did.
Mm-mm-mm.
Everybody did.
Dude, I want to
Oh
get back to
gosh.
this. I want to ask you how Jeremy proposed in a minute, but I think also, to me, it's like it's the opposite of killing two birds with one stone. It's like you have such an opportunity for joy. You just won this race that you have trained so hard for. You're an Olympic athlete. Why wouldn't you want to prolong that joy and like enjoy that? And then get engaged later, whether you do it or not. I have opinions on that as well, but to me, something just felt gross about it.
Yeah.
Especially like you're coming off this moment that you've trained and worked so hard for, and then you're making him the star. He
She,
hasn't
yeah.
done
She
anything. He
like
hasn't
took
done
away her
anything.
own moment.
I took away from her own moment, and
Yeah.
that's fine. Like I get, like I think we all remember the Boise State proposal, like 2007 after the like Fiesta Bowl or whatever it was. Like that was awesome. I've like actually like Googled that couple recently. They're still together,
Oh,
but
good.
I think to me, what is like gross, what feels icky, I would say it's not necessarily gross, but what feels icky and wrong is like when you're making the guy the prize when in every other facet of life, women have to fight to be respected and heard and cherished and wanted and all of this stuff. It's like that's really your one opportunity that you've really ever had the power in that moment to answer that question. And like even like it goes back to like men or women paying for dates, whatever. And I'm like, the reason I'm like, yeah, men maybe should is because just like the pay gap, like the gender like wage gap, like to me, like that means like it takes less of you to pay for it than it does less of what I make. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's just something every, and that goes back. It's closer now than it has been, but still, I think that those were the roots of it, right? And you can't ignore the history of it, or even like the biology of like some of it, and just how why women are considered the prize, even how just like our reproduction works. But I don't know something about that. It sounds silly that it still feels so weird. I just think the amount that women get disrespected or taken advantage of in relationships. I know men do too, but I feel like it's scaled to one way so much more. And who knows? I'm happy if that makes them happy. But it killed me to see that shine taken away. Like, even if you propose, do it the next day.
Yeah.
Like, I would do it once I got back home, but why would I want to, like, mix up those experiences when I have the opportunity for joy and to spread it out and to make it longer? But I want to hear how Jeremy proposed to you. Or you proposed to Jeremy. I
No,
don't
I
even
didn't. No,
know.
I didn't. Ours is actually pretty quiet. I mean, we were out to eat. So there were other people around, but it was a very like quiet setting. It
Intimate.
wasn't a loud restaurant. And we were kind of like off at a table by ourselves. And he asked me. So it wasn't anything like over the top, which I like. Like I don't want anything that's like this big, giant, grand gesture of a
Production.
proposal. Yeah. Like I didn't need a whole production. But here's the thing too, like, and he didn't find this out until years later. I knew he was proposing.
No. So did you play it off?
Yeah.
Did you act surprised?
I tried.
Well, they didn't know until years later. You obviously did a good job.
I know. I found the ring one day.
How long before? How long before he asked?
Like a month. I tried it on to make sure it fit.
What did he do when you told him that?
He was like, "What would you have done if it didn't fit?" I was like, "I would have had it sized because you wouldn't have noticed it was gone."
You would have been right, right? I love your point of like it being this intimate thing between you all, because I think that's the best thing of like having a partner is like you get a side of each other that like the whole world doesn't see. So I
Yeah.
don't want to have my world face on. I don't want to have to be acting like I would act around all these strangers. You can't really be who you really are to each other. And but this is coming from a single girl, so
Yeah.
take it with a grain.
No, I get it. I get
You
it.
know,
So a lot of other things happening in the Olympics, other than all these romantic grand gestures of
romance. You
like
texted me that today. You said
pole
there's so much
vaulting and
romance.
so much. Like I
Mm-hmm.
watched this video that talking about how this has been the most romantic Olympics and it's in the city of love. And I'm like, okay, well, good for you guys.
Yeah,
But
oh, look, it did hearts. Did that record? Look, I just did a
oh,
heart. And
it
it
did
did a heart.
record. Brian's giving me the thumbs up on that.
How was my phone doing? It didn't do it that time.
A lot of other things happening. Women's volleyball advanced this morning, and that's a big one. You have a friend on the team,
Avery Skinner, no, a
Avery
former
Skinner.
UK player. And
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure how she did in the game today, but she was kind of elevated from, I think she started as like a backup, like a, just kind of like a background, like role player, kind of coming in off the bench or whatever. And she has been critical in their games leading up to this match and has made a lot of big plays. And I'm wondering how she did today, but that's huge to have that representation on that stage. And I think Craig Skinner went to Paris to the games. I love Craig. This is the funniest thing ever. I was at a wedding recently. When I worked for my last job, BB and Tonight, we would always laugh about how the volleyball girls, they never called him coach or Coach Skinner. They just always called him Craig. And so I was at a wedding recently and sat next to some former UK volleyball players. And I was like, all right, y'all, I know Craig. They were like, Craig! Like, you know you're in when you just say Craig.
oh
He's
yeah,
one of my favorite coaches I ever interviewed. So I loved to see him there supporting, representing. And Avery Skinner, she was part of that national championship team for Kentucky as well. So heck yeah, the Cats are over there, man. And Streeble and I were laughing this week because Josh Hurd, I believe, is in Paris supporting, and I don't think Mitch Barnhart is. And we kind of had a little chuckle about that because there's so many, especially track athletes. Messiah Russell is another big one, and then all the basketball guys. But heck yeah, USA volleyball, let's go, and let's go Avery Skinner.
yeah. And speaking of the basketball guys, they had a good comeback win today. And Steph Curry dropped 36 points in that
36,
comeback.
baby. They were what? They were down entering the fourth quarter, I want to say.
They were down double digits at the half.
Yeah.
And I know I was listening to Mark Lieberman talk about it, and I think they were down going into the fourth quarter as well, and came back and won that game. So that was a big win for them. And
Over
it's funny
Serbia.
because when they were down at the half, I heard Mark Lieberman was on air with Mark Ennis, and he told Mark Ennis, he was like, they're down, but don't worry, they're going to win this game.
That's our Leaves, man.
He's the basketball mind that man has.
Coach
is
Leaves.
incredible.
We're going to have to go to
Incredible.
some Holy Cross games and support.
Definitely. We got to go support our guy. For sure.
We love coaches, but yeah, and Serbia too. That's a big team to beat because that's really been that area of like the Balkans has been the area that's produced so much NBA talent recently. So now what they play France in the gold medal match. I want to
Yeah.
say it's
Yeah.
gonna be a big one. It's gonna be a
It'll
hot
be huge.
crowd.
Yeah, that place will be packed. And speaking of hot crowds, they have had huge crowds over at the Olympic weightlifting, which is my jam personally.
My muscle was big there.
I look at that bicep,
What just
girl.
happened? I don't even lift. I just love this
um,
Alani knew. That's
yeah, so the Olympic weightlifting, which is right up my alley, they have drawn some pretty big crowds so far. They're not even to the heaviest weight classes yet. And some of these women out here have just been absolutely insane. I'm talking
killing
like
it.
they're lifting barbells over their head on their first attempt at 200, like 205 plus pounds.
That's insane.
It's nuts. Like the strength of some of these women is just wild to me. I was watching, they did the lightest weight classes yesterday. It was the, I think they were like 49 kilogram weight class. So you're talking about girls that weigh like 125 tops. Like they're little girls. And the girl from Romania, who was my personal favorite to win, she ended up getting the silver. Her weightlifting was some of the most beautiful weightlifting I've ever seen.
The form. What makes it beautiful?
Your form. So with Olympic weightlifting, there are two lifts that are considered your Olympic total. You have the power snatch, which goes from the ground straight to overhead. And you have the clean and jerk, which goes from the ground to here and then overhead.
Okay.
So the power snatch is extremely technical. It's the most technical weightlifting movement out there. There's a lot to it. It's really easy to mess up. And if you don't do it right, you can get hurt. A few years back, my favorite CrossFit athlete, actually, her name is Brooke Wells. She's from down in Tennessee, was competing in a 1 rep max power snatch at the CrossFit Games, and she dislocated her elbow on the platform. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Hey, that's one of those injuries that just goes through you.
You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. It was awful. So to see these girls coming out here on this platform at the Olympics in front of the entire world, I get nervous, like doing a power snatch at the gym in front of 3 people that's like 115 pounds. I'm like, okay, don't watch me, please. Don't watch me. And you've got these girls going out here, some of them who are fairly young, who have won at worlds and just like other lifting competitions, going out here screaming, getting hyped up, and like just tossing these barbells in the air like it's absolutely nothing.
Were you nervous watching? Were you like,
I wasn't nervous, but I did quickly realize that my Olympic dreams are dead.
you were still holding out hope?
A little bit, I had a conversation with some people the other day about if you could pick one Olympic sport, if you started right now to compete in 4 years, what would it be? And I'm like, okay, like I could maybe do weightlifting.
Maybe I got this in the bag.
Nah.
No. Yeah. Never mind. I'm gonna take up figure skating. I'm gonna take up
the winning clean and jerk yesterday in the lightest weight class for the women's weightlifting, which is not a class I would be in, was 100 pounds heavier than my current 1 rep max. 100 pounds heavier. That's when I decided
what was the highest amount? Like who won? Like what was the highest?
It was 255 pounds.
So she was like 125 doing that?
Yeah. It's insane.
I can't fathom that.
No. And that's where technique comes into play on something like that. As you know, with a power clean, it's definitely, well, with both movements really, it's about getting under the bar, making sure you drop quick enough under the bar. And especially with like a clean and jerk, you land it here before it goes here. So I've had some pretty gnarly like collarbone bruises before.
That vehicle
yeah. So like these girls are insane. They crushed all of my Olympic dreams. I'm gonna have to decide what sport I'm gonna be good at in 4 years. I don't know.
I feel like you could like kill some rugby. Like I could see that for you.
Maybe.
Mhm.
I don't really
By the
like
way,
running though.
have you heard of Ilona Mar, my baby girl,
Yeah,
my
you wanted to
best
talk about
friend?
that. Let's talk about it.
I am obsessed with her, and she's this awesome women's rugby player, and they won the bronze. So this like come from behind, last play of the game, defeated Australia, or it was New Zealand? It was one of those. I don't know which one, but she's so cool, and she's a naturally like very muscular girl, and she's so cute and hilarious. And she was calling the Olympic Village. She was calling it the Villa, like it was Love Island. Like she kept trying to like meet him in there. And people have been brutal to her because she is bigger. She's muscular. She's not like big like in a derogatory way at all. And I hate that people use it that way. And I've never been like a small person either. Like that's growing up, that was never anything. And Ilona Mars talked about that, and she said, she cried about it in one of these videos she posted. She was like, "It hurts people call me masculine. People are saying I need to be checked if I'm trans. I need to be checked if I'm all really a man. If I'm taking hormones, testosterone, whatever." She's like, "Girls can be big, and you can take up space, and you can have broad shoulders, and you can." And what's so funny is like she wouldn't even need to be, but she has such a feminine, beautiful personality. Like when you hear her talk, or she's just so funny and she's glowing and she's bubbly and all this stuff, and it just breaks my heart. I think she handles it so well and is such an amazing role model for young girls. Um, just to have that power, I think it scares people, and I just hate that with women. Is just immediately sexualized. Like that's not somebody I would date. So they must be. I don't care about that smart. And it even kills me with like with the credit and the views the WNBA is getting recently. It's all about like, oh, these players are hot now, and it's like we just don't do that with the men's games like at all. Like occasionally like Joe Burrow or like Sam Hartman or something will be like, oh man, he's so cute, he's so handsome, but like that's not the same way that with women it's still so sexualized even in marketing, like the money you get because of the views you get, and it's so disheartening and disappointing and the opposite of what sport and competition should be about. And it makes me sad because it's just a microcosm of how we view women in everyday life. But shout out to Alona Mars. She is so confident and having the vulnerability to cry about that and to say it hurts her, and it but she's not going to stop, and she's so proud of who she is and her body type and what she's able to do with her body, and that strong is good. And she even talks about how as a kid, like they would do that BMI testing and stuff in school, and like how hers would always be like hers was overweight, but she's not, like she's a very muscular girl. And it just makes me sad that we all kind of grew up with that, right? But what a bright light and what an awesome stage for her to be on, and that she's doing it with grace and humor makes me so happy. And she's been like my favorite of the Olympics so far. She's been so
I
awesome.
was going to ask who your favorite has been. I think my favorite story so far, and I showed you this before we started recording today, is Kristen Faulkner, who has a really good story. She's a cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm just going to read a few facts off about her. She grew up in Alaska. She rode at Harvard, which is incredible. Like, we love a smart girl. Moved to New York City after she finished Harvard. She started working for a venture capital firm. She took a beginner's cycling class in Central Park while she was living in New York City and started cycling at 5 a.m. every day before work. I guess she decided she really liked it. So she started competing in like local tournaments and things like that. And eventually quit her job and moved to California to cycle full time. And she was added to the USA Road Cycling roster 1 month before these Olympic Games.
Dang.
1 month. It's been 7 years since she started cycling. So in 7 years, she went from taking a beginner's class to being the first American to win gold in the women's road race in 40 years.
Listen, you either got it or you
40
don't.
years.
Can you
Like,
imagine what she looked like in that beginner's class? They're probably like, quit lying to us. You're good at this.
right. Like, not only is she obviously extremely intelligent, she went to Harvard, worked for venture capitalism, but like to be a natural born athlete like that,
It's not fair.
who is God's favorite?
But yeah, her, Kristen. We see you.
I
We
know.
see you,
So
Lord.
that's definitely been one of my favorite stories coming out of the Olympics. I think that is just an incredible feat to spend, 7 years, maybe my dream of 4 years isn't really that far out of reach.
No, give
Because
you a
if
few more
I add
years,
in
girl.
4 from now, that gives me 10 total.
Yeah. It also just goes
So,
to show like how opportunity is everything. Like
yeah.
she lived in a place and like was at the status that she even was in New York and like through education, through her job or whatever, and have the opportunity to go do that class and have the capabilities to be connected with the best in the industry to get her where she is. Like so much of it is about opportunity too. Like there's talent everywhere. There's not opportunity everywhere. But that's an exceptional story. Like I don't think you'd hear that. I mean, to
Mm-mm.
be just made for something, it makes you feel like everybody's got a purpose, the natural inclination of what they're good at. And I'm just sure
Yeah.
most of that is physical for her, but some of that is probably just commitment and discipline and having the mindset to pursue it and to do it. And if it's in you, what is this, the Gatorade commercial? Like if it's in you, it's in you. Just go
It's in
do
you.
it. Like
Yep.
you know it.
Yep. And on the topic of people who just have it and have that determination, I'm going to get away from the Olympics and finish our night out with one more little story. We're going to switch over to little U of L women's basketball for a minute.
Do it.
And I'm not going to do a ton on this right now because I do want to get into rosters a little closer to basketball season. But U of L has a player who spent some time over in Paris this summer. Her name is Jada Curry. She will be joining us for another season. She became a quick Louisville favorite last year after transferring in. Very talented player. She was invited to a camp in Paris this summer. It was about I think it was a 2 or 3 week camp where she basically got to go. It's not like an official NBA training camp of any kind, but they get very talented players over there. They get them together, get them ready for things like, getting ready for the draft and getting ready for your for your senior year. I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to her and her coach a couple of weeks ago. And I believe Brian is going to get that interview up for us. So you guys will be able to watch that in full. It's about a 20-minute interview. I talked to her coach over there. But she's someone who I noticed through that interview has really seized a lot of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
She came into Louisville and, we kind of talked about how that was a whole different experience for her. U of L women's basketball is just like, you don't get anything else like what you get at a U of L women's basketball home game. Like we have very committed fans here. So she's really gotten to experience that and take advantage of the opportunity to come and play for Jeff Walls and play for Stephanie Norman and play with people like Olivia Cochran. And I'm excited that she had the opportunity to go to Paris and improve her game this summer. And it's funny, she was telling me, we were talking about the Olympics and they were there. I think her last week there was either week of opening ceremony or like right before opening ceremony.
Oh wow.
So she was saying like, I never had the opportunity to come to France before. I was like, well, that's really ironic because now you're there now, and U of L is opening their season in Paris this year. So I was like, you went from never being in France to going twice within like 6 months.
You're basically
How does that
Parisian.
feel? Like, talk about taking advantage of opportunity. Like you're living in it, girl.
You pretty much have citizenship at this point.
I know. But she's one who I think is an athlete who you do see take advantage of that opportunity and is strong and is willing to use her leadership skills to lift up her teammates and win games when necessary. So I'm very excited about that interview. I'm very excited for you guys to see it. It should be out when this episode comes out. And I'll let you guys know what that link is. And hopefully we'll see her and maybe some of her coaches on this podcast at some point.
I'm so excited. And shout out to Chrissy for getting that done. That was one of the first things you did for this podcast was you came in here, you recorded that, you got it done. And I am just in awe of you. I know we saw each other at a few of those TBT games. And the first one, you were like, I am here on business, baby. You had set up all these interviews. You got that one done out of the way.
Yep.
So you're the heartbeat of the show. And we love it and we appreciate it.
Well, Anna, thank you for another good episode. Brian, thank you for being back there behind the camera tonight again. And thank you to Andrew for the Alani. He hooked us up on that. He worked that deal for us. He's a real one. Guys, we will see you again in 2 weeks where we will hopefully talk a little more Olympics, have a final medal count for you, and we will be in football season by that
Woo!
point. So it's here. It's coming.
We ready.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.